We'll go over our thesis here in this presentation. And along with me right now, I'd just like to introduce a few other people that will be presenting. But Bernd Lath has been such a great and brilliant help and is on our board with us. Bernd is familiar and participated with many other DAO organizations previously. Also has worked with the Ethereum Foundation, has been a part of the decentralized community for many years. And Wolf Call. Wolf is a professor, lawyer, now dear friend, who puts a lot of the academic research behind a lot of the things that we're doing. And so we're very appreciative of having him on for the ride. I'll call out Marco Annabelli on the call as well. Marco's been so helpful into a lot of the things that we've been putting together. You know, really where this came from over the last several years, I've got a vast group of developers in my network. I've been an open source developer for coming on 30 years now. Very passionate about open source and technology. And over the last 5 years, most people, when they're building layer 1 protocols, I've been involved with a lot of them, try to tap into me and try to tap into my network of resources to either help build or help decentralize or help run validation networks. I was a part of building out some of the largest infrastructure for some of the largest banking companies in the world. Now I choose to do that for good, and in the open source community, running, operating as a CTO of a major mining operation for Bitcoin, operating through Ethereum mining, a lot of different proof of work minings into something now, proof of stake mining opportunities that have come across in the last few years. There's a lot of developer rot in the community, and a lot of people have, the developer community for the decentralized world is really small. It's not yet really mature. The vast majority sit in Ethereum, but there's still so much work that needs to be done in infrastructure for not only the protocols themselves, but some of the actual tools, the real world tools that will be built. And there aren't really enough developers to participate in that. And there's not really a way to incentivize developers in the communities as well as it once was. So I was asked by a new protocol that was emerging to help out in their building of their protocol and them trying to find different developer resources. And I told them the only way I would get involved is if we could create an organization that would try to work on, in a protocol agnostic way, try to work on DAO principles and frameworks, both legally and technically. So the organization Casper Labs entrusted me to be able to help form an organization to be able to dive deeper into forming DAOs. It's my theory that we really don't have the legal frameworks yet in place to reach this ultimate organizational type, but we still need to really incentivize the work that needs to be put together, both legally and technically, to get to those style of organizations and to get to this next evolution of organization. And that was the birth of the Dev DAO. So I'll go through our presentation now. Can everyone see the presentation as it is? Wolf?
Yeah.
Yep. Sounds good. So I'll go into our mission. The purpose of the Dev DAO is to support open source and transparent research and development of emerging technologies and frameworks for building communities and governance by way of issuing grants to a broad array of experts, developers, scientists around the globe. The Dev DAO strives to use a system of governance to distribute incentives and develop better organizational frameworks for communities. It's a long way of saying we've ingested in a large grant, and it's our purpose to use that grant in a way to develop better organizational structures. And we're going to be looking for experts, developers, and academics and scientists to help us build that. We have a lot of core beliefs as a group. It's very important, we believe, early on to find and attract members that have a similar framework of beliefs that we do. And a lot of them are based around freedom, equity, efficiency, and a collaboration for the common good. All work that we will do within the organization is open source work. The role of DAOs and the future of commerce in society. And DAOs, what they can be seen is as the logical extension of platform businesses. For those that aren't as familiar with DAOs, I'll go into a little bit about the history the evolution of business. And this slide really represents understanding what an asset-heavy business is, like Marriott, versus an asset-light business is, like Airbnb. Understanding the value and the top-down infrastructure and holding large assets doesn't necessarily equate to the largest value extraction that we've seen in asset-light organizations more recently. Traditional businesses that are asset-heavy have a lot more infrastructure or more top-down and a lot less equity that's distributed amongst all the members than the evolution to asset-light businesses, where really equity and hopefully governance are more spread between all members. And we've seen that trend go towards asset-light from asset-heavy over the last 60 to 70 years, but more so really in the last 20 years as the internet's emerged. There's the top-down organizational style is not nearly as efficient as some of the more intelligent platforms that represent more of a flat hierarchy, where we can have different asset and shareholders and stakeholders that are making decisions that are contributing to the benefits of the organization, also take part of that, the growth in the organization itself. We see that this is transforming into for us the ultimate model, or the latest model that we believe that is the most optimal model, is the decentralized autonomous organization. We've seen early examples of this. The model itself isn't finalized yet, but over the last 5 years, we've started with great experimentation. We need a lot more experimentation. We need a lot more research into the models that can support this. But we've seen this start with a lot of VC models, and now we're seeing this start with grant-based models and then also engineering-based models, where you can, with smart contracts, you can remove some of the middlemen that are involved in organizational structure and efficiency in organizations. So how will we create the system of growing governance? Like any good democracy, DAOs achieve stability over time when allowed to grow organically at a pace matching their stakeholders' levels of involvement. Our first phase is really what we've been in now, phase one, where we've identified a group of experts and advocates during this early stage. What we've done is we've structured rules and subcommittees, and we've begun the discussions of voting weights before reaching out to other participants. We did a lot of our work in what we'll show later in our legal structure, helping move forward the framework of DAO legal structures. And we've begun some of the working group models that we believe will help encourage the next 200 members. And really, we're defining personas during this next time. We're defining people, not only developers, though we'll be developer heavy, but also other personas like legal persona, client persona, other members that are going to be required to help us as an organization establish new roles, expand subcommittees, and arm the DAO. We'll be creating rules to govern decision between the subcommittees and working groups. That hopefully will allow us to build the technical platform, the minimum viable DAO product that we expect to be able to onboard a much larger group of members, allowing them to help shape the rules and the decisions that we make. Not all DAOs are the same type of organization. As I said before, there are some that are VC-based and make only investment-based decisions. Our organization is a grant-based organization that strives to help build better organizational structure. So we are very interested in the opinions and voting from members that can help us reach that better decision, help us decide where to actually activate and allocate the grants that we receive. So we'll be creating our first public involvement after the minimum viable DAO product comes on. We'll build systems to automate onboarding, education, and create community channels to allow people within the organization itself to gain in reputation and gain in value that is a non-transferable asset within our own organization. So we've made a lot of great steps getting there so far. But we believe that above all, governance is a feature and not a bug. And governance itself is what we're continuing to work on, and like many other people should be. I mean, humanity hasn't solved governance yet, and we're humble enough to know that we won't solve this in the next 30 to 60 days. But we are continuing to build efforts towards building better technical governance software that allows decentralized communities to maintain and provide better governance, possibly than centralized governance. It's very interesting, and we all love working on a lot of the problems that surround this. When we look at centralized reputation governance, there's some limitations. They can all be Sybil attacked, and in centralized systems, users earn reputation, but it's not owned by them. For example, in a system like Facebook, if they can delete your account and 20 years of your own data is gone. All financial and reputation scores are really trapped in silos from centrally controlled organizations without interoperability between platforms. And we'll show later, your information as a consumer on Amazon never interacts really with your information as a social advocate on Facebook, whereas your reputation holds value in both systems. Users can't build reputation based on social capital. There's really no privacy on centralized systems, and there's no data autonomy for those users. It is not really a reputation-based network, or there's no network effect based on that reputation, and it's definitely not self-sovereign in its identity in any way. So the central reputation economy relies on rent seekers, whether it's your social platform like Facebook, your commerce platform like Amazon, your business platform, or your consumer platform. All of them, the value that they hold and that they own is your reputation. And they do not share that value with any of the other organizations that you create reputation in. We've gotten, we dive further into this with every meeting that we have. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to create great reputation-based systems that are based on academic research. Wolf Call has really been leading that charge, and I'd like to call upon Wolf right now to go over some of the thoughts that we have and some of the academic papers that you've worked on that deal with reputation and how we are approaching the problem.
Yeah, thank you, Timothy. Appreciate this. So yeah, I've worked in this field as an academic with mathematical models for the last 5 years. And I believe that, I know that it's mathematically possible to build this because math doesn't lie. It's just a question of who builds and how we're building this out, right? There's several metrics that I think can be accomplished with the right people. And so underlying all of this is sort of this idea that reputation as a governance metric is something that gives, quote unquote, the power back, right? So if we look at the earlier slide that Timothy showed that illustrates how Facebook, et cetera, are controlling in silos the data that folks are providing for free, right? This is a free service. Using reputation metrics, if you want to go to the next slide, Timothy, will allow us to give that power back in some ways. Now, this is not the mathematical model. This is sort of the overarching concept and ideals that come out of those. So no silos, right? We don't want the silos. There's a way to overcome the silos. People own their own and control their own reputation. And you can use reputation scores as a conversation starter. Now, the Chinese, of course, they're talking about social credit scores and so forth to control people. This is the antithesis of that. Yeah. We also believe that reputation scores can enable new business models because of the organic nature of these reputation scores that are individually owned and controlled. Yeah. There's no way to aggregate user reputation. And we would try to accomplish complete privacy of reputation scores, immutability of reputation records. Marco and I actually talked about this. The Kevlar system may help to instantiate some of these ideals. This is a separate conversation, of course. And then reputation autonomy. Yeah, this is really important. And then ultimately, one can perceive and conceptualize reputation scoring and reputation governance as a way to create self-sovereign identity, which is something that the community has talked about for what, 3 years now. And we haven't really seen systems that accomplish these governance and reputation governance metrics and can lead into self-sovereign identity. I'll probably be able to stop here, Timothy, if you want to keep going.
Sounds good. Thank you, Wolf. I'll go on and start go into a little bit of the legal concept now. As far as DAOs go, the idea of a DAO being an organization that eventually will be, a sovereign unit in itself, potentially with autonomy and able to act as an organization in a legal right, is difficult to get to in current legal structures. So we've seen over the last several years, people have tried to launch these types of organizations. There are different theories that exist on how to operate. When you do have partnerships that exist in the real world, you have to do them in a legal manner, but none of the DAOs until real recently have been able to operate without an arm's length legal organization that they attach to. And this is going to continue until we really have political activist communities that help change law to enable DAO smart contract run organizations to be recognized as legal entities themselves. But until then, there are going to be bridge frameworks that allow organizations to run. The LAO is one of those in the United States. The association model in Switzerland was one that we felt really was closest to a model that we would like to begin work on to help us get to this style of organization that gives us the most freedom and flexibility and allows the members of the DAO software to be autonomous with only having to deal with a few members of a board in Switzerland that actually have less control than all of those that remain autonomous. So we helped construct a new model for that, and we'll go through a little bit of that. I believe I have a slide a little later on that has the structure of it exactly. But the goal eventually is to help progress different types of legal frameworks to allow organizations to remain autonomous and yet have legal interaction with other organizations that are recognized by governments. So something that we are very interested in continuing to fund and very interested in, minimizing the human elements of the organizational structure, allowing the governance and voting to really rule all over the direction of a few humans that might represent them in a board somewhere. This is the structure that we've come up with. And this is several months of work spearheaded by Bernd Lapp, who I'll invite here to go over a little bit of some of the idea of how we came up with this structure and what it represents. Bernd?
Yeah, just short background again. So I'm located in Switzerland, and I've sort of was part of the Ethereum Foundation. And so a lot of blockchain projects use a foundation as their entity. And I've also witnessed that, and I've seen a lot of problems there. It's heavily regulated, first of all, and it's all entities that we look at today, like limited liability or public companies, are top-down approached hierarchies. So the board is responsible and will decide, and then the decisions are being made in the board. When we look at the association structure, it struck me, since I also have a sports background, it struck me that one of the biggest companies actually in the world is an association. It's FIFA, the World Soccer Federation. It's $1 billion company, and they're actually structured as an association, which gives them a lot of lightweight. And it's typically associations are member driven. So the General Assembly, this gray circle in the middle, is sort of where decisions are being made, and decisions on strategy, on funding, on who's on the board. All this is done in the General Assembly, and it's done by all the members. And So this is where really decisions are being made. The board is executing these decisions. So it's really a bottom-up approach. It's the board is interacting with the real world and executes what the General Assembly has decided on. And the great thing about associations as well is that they're very also very lean to create. You just need the articles of association, and then you can create your own entity. And this entity is able to interact with the real world, for example, by opening a bank account. So what we want to do here is we want to fund projects. We want to fund research. And a DAO is probably not able to receive these funds because it's not a real entity. So a company that wants to donate needs a counterpart and needs maybe an agreement. And this is not possible with a DAO structure if you don't have an entity created for that. But we don't want to use, or there is no DAO entity yet. So that's one of the goals we want to accomplish as well. So what we've done here is we put sort of the association as the framework to have a limited liability entity, receive funds, but the DAO himself is not really part of the association, but is represented by what we call the DAM. It's the delegate association member. He's the delegate of the DAO. So he brings in the votes. The decision making is actually done within the Dev DAO, or this DAO now, for example, that we create. And one member of the Developer DAO takes these votes and brings them into the General Assembly. And this member has more votes than the association board. So it will always be the decision made by the Dev DAO will always be the decision that will be carried across into the association. And therefore, the funds then can be distributed according to what the Dev DAO decides, but within a legal framework that is accepted, that is used, and where you have liability covered through the organization. So that's, I'm happy to take questions later on, or we all are. So I hope this makes sense to you.
Thank you, Bern, and we'll dive into that a little bit later on. What that means for now for us is that we can have still a relatively small board as we get into the technical capabilities where we have the confidence in the system, and then we will be able to reduce our entire association to just 2 individuals. One will be a representative of the board itself, and one will be the DAM, the Delegate Association member. And that Delegate Association member will have the effective weight of every member of the DAO as a separate external organization. So you know, in any way, in all cases, the DAM will be voting with the weight and all of the combination of the results for anything that we're voting on in the way that we are moving funds or making decisions. You know, unless the person that feels that that they can't legally do something, and then they can step down as the delegate association member. But we believe that this is a system that most closely represents the true governance and power of a DAO that we've seen in use yet, and we're going to be refining that system until, you know, eventually we hope that we have the political activist communities that can help some jurisdictions understand and believe that we can comply with their intentions, possibly by, you know, being an organization that has 0 members as an association and is fully run by these contracts. So we'll be releasing an academic paper on this model over the next few weeks. But Wolf has been working on that, and you know, hopefully we'll have some good press about what that is, because it's a very innovative, interesting model that allows us to really do a lot of the things that we want to contractually and have those upheld by a very few number of people. So very exciting. You know, legal concepts, you know, we have to provide a sort of vision for real world legal solutions. And it's not just VC based entities. It's not just, you know, engineering based entities. to decentralized engineering solutions. If this is going to be the future type of organizational infrastructure, we've been very interested in finding other types of organizations that need to come together, that need to make decisions, but don't always necessarily trust each other or want to have want to be that don't always have a great governance model as it is in the real world. Finding these types of organizations of the separate groups that have to work together and control financial obligations or control financial decisions. A lot of us have a background in financial technology, and one of the best examples of this type of organization is a self-regulatory organization. Groups of members that come together to make decisions where we believe that DAO models and autonomous systems can provide a lot better solution for these organizations, as they grow. In the centralized role of governance in an SRO type organization, a lot of times the politics or the loudest voice can create a situation where the members don't feel that they're being represented properly. So one of the things that we're really diving into is creating the technical solutions for different types of organizations that might be very well suited for this DAO infrastructure. So we're paying attention, and we're working on models for different types of organizations that are best fit moving over to a DAO. And we're hoping to have some early examples of those sort of software and technical implementations for this as we emerge over the next year. And hopefully there'll be a role model in our SRO model for other digital asset SROs, and we can come up with frameworks for the SROs to help create real world legal solutions for digital asset entities, so they can help progress also our belief in the model itself, and to help create a more jurisdictionally compliant model for DAOs globally and in different jurisdictions. So how are we being built? So as I mentioned previously, there's a new layer 1 protocol. We're completely protocol agnostic. We can build on anything that we choose to. And that was part of me going down and walking down this path. But this is the first of hopefully many grants that we've received, and this really was the kickoff for it. There's a new protocol that I'm very interested in working with, Casper Labs, that's been emerging over the last 2 years. And what they've done is they've taken a very large portion of their network and granted it to us to operate with as a completely separate autonomous organization that is under no guide or guise to use that in any way other than in the promotion of building infrastructure for DAOs. So this is a 10-year grant. It's 20% of the Casper Labs network, and the grant distribution multi-sig is controlled by the DAO itself. So this has a large real-world USD value currently, and we're hoping that through our work and effort, we are able to be funded, use this funding as a base for what we're doing over the next few years. But we will continue to go after different protocol grants and external real-world value grants in order to continue our effort. We're very happy. We believe we have a several multi-year runway to be able to operate, and we have some very innovative models for creating bounties in this token and grant distribution. That's the intention for it, finding other, incentivizing and bringing out the incentives for individuals to work with us through grants and through bounties that we create within the organization. In this example, Casper Labs specifically, we're going to help with roles that they're hoping for that are for the greater good of really all of the decentralized community. Understanding how to decentralize a protocol and helping in efforts to decentralize that protocol, supporting a commons area, helping them build protocol enhanced governance models that will be, again, open source and available for any protocol to use, helping to build credit style systems to allow developers to create contracts, the fee deployment, have that be mitigated by the credit style system that we're developing, and then running validators for the network, as well as creating a lot of our DAO tools on that network. So we're very excited to be working with the Casper team. I've worked with Vlad Zamfir for years, as well as Renal and several of the people that are a part of that project. So looking very much forward to launching and thanking them very much for their trust and their belief in what we are trying to build in DAOs that they have really helped finance and fund the organization. Our membership goals. So over the next year, it's going to be very targeted. We've got a lot of people that from different personas that we're interested in communicating with. We, aside from forming the association and having probably the first 20 to 30 members that have been participating, we're really refining our membership definition now, and we're refining our membership process now, and defining the personas. A lot of the personas will be developers. A lot of them that we're interested in working with might not even be involved in blockchain at all to date. A lot of looking primarily in the Rust community, but I've been involved in many other communities and hope that people come across, and if they were involved in Aragon, Ethereum Classic, people that might move over from the centrally controlled Hashgraph community, they might be interested in helping us build out. So looking for a lot of different developers, but different personas as well, including real world client style businesses where we can help build models for them and understand their needs as we're moving forward towards these different models that we're developing. Developers from a broad spectrum, technologies, economists, and academics. We're going to come up with membership grant programs for students, making sure that some of the research, whether it be master's or doctorate level research, does get funded in ways that we are able to. We do again have a large grant, and we'll be exercising that based kind of on the direction as we mold the membership requirements as an organization. We believe the principles of DAOs are based around community, but within that community, we have a slug model where we can create stability in assets, liquidity in assets, utility in the technology that we provide, and have it all be ruled by governance and liquid governance. So we're looking for different ways to create some of the infrastructure tools. Most of our progress is going to be through infrastructure. We are intending to be a DAO that helps build DAOs. We have different programs and outreach that will help people develop and deploy their own DAO organizations. We're hoping to have frameworks not only from the legal side, but from the infrastructure side, cross-protocol, with different systems that are required for better organizational management. So there's a lot of work being done in there, but we all base that on our slug theory. Building a real-world solution of this magnitude is no small task. We are looking for other people to help us. A lot of us have backgrounds in financial institutions, and we would love to continue and explore the conversations of people in those in that realm of the world. Government and public sector, we have to interact with governments, and we have to help create better and more transparent organizations to solve jurisdictional compliance issues. And then we believe very strongly in academic teams, whether that's from traditional academia or those that are going out and making breakthroughs in study and science and research through their own methods. But we are very open to all people that have a lot of talent, whether it be in open source communities in the development world, blockchain, non-blockchain. Most developers in the world haven't participated in the blockchain economies yet, and definitely looking to bring them along. So anyone that you have, anyone interested here, Slug in the future of decentralized infrastructure is for everyone. We do believe that this is an organizational model that will be very prevalent in the next century to come. And we hope that you can join us in helping develop some of the infrastructure that might be useful for generations after ours. Thank you. I think that's the end of our presentation. I'm happy to take some questions if anyone has them. We've got a little bit of time left, about 13 minutes left. So if anyone has any questions or comments, raise your hand either via video or via chat and shoot them at us.
Yeah, I'll start off with a question if that's okay, Timothy.
Yeah, please.
So yeah, I'm working on a project called Raid Guild, and we're actually a developer DAO too, but a little bit different from the angle that I think you guys are coming for, which is super impressive, really interesting. I'm interested to learn more. Would you say that your ultimate goal is to create more of like processes and frameworks that people can use to deploy their own DAOs, like governance mechanisms, this kind of thing? Okay, cool. Yeah, it's because we're an Ethereum DAO, right? We're a Moloch V2 DAO, and like we're a developer DAO in the sense that we want to be developers. We want to create products. We want to ship Web3 things by doing it through a DAO. And we're actually already operating, but we have encountered some, challenges, things or opportunities for growth along the way, limitations, based on the different tooling that's available. So I think it would be really interesting to talk more about, as you guys grow, as you develop these systems, like where you might implement it in communities that are existing or communities that are willing to experiment with like governance processes. Because although we may love Ethereum and we may be super stoked on DAOs, we encounter issues that your project could help solve for us in a really complementary way. So exciting stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Exactly. Sorry, go ahead, Timothy. It's exactly on point. Go ahead, Timothy.
Yeah, the intention of this is to be non-tribalistic and protocol agnostic. I love Ethereum myself. Ethereum gave me more freedom than almost any other thing I've ever encountered in life. But as a systems developer and designer, I realize that we're still so early in building out so many different types of infrastructures. And we're here to, a lot of the other projects, when I look at a lot of the other DAOs, we're still experimenting with governance. And although I've loved them, a lot of them have run into either financial issues, run into issues that deal and stem from tribalism. And we're here to support. So the reality is, we want to continue to fund organizations that have made some right steps and that are open to understanding that all the steps haven't been made. We're hoping to become kind of an organization that can. We have a model right now that actually can help assume roles for existing DAOs. We hope to be able to build out a model for governance and acceptance of governance that allows us to kind of go to bat in a real world solution for a lot of other DAOs and other DAO organizations. But we're looking to continue the conversations with people that have that experience. Whether it be Aragon, whether it be Moloch, whether it be some of the other, there's other networks that exist. I mean, I've worked a lot on the, don't hate me, but I've worked a lot on the EOS network. And there's some interesting DPoS experiments that have gone on for DAOs and different types of organizational structures. And trying to just gather up a bunch of people and say, listen, we don't all need to, rebuild the wheel. Let's all work together, making sure that some projects, if they're governed correctly, if they're going towards more of an open governance, then you make sure that they are getting the finance that they need, make sure that the projects themselves are, most of this stuff is systems design, it's not protocol design, right? So most of this stuff is like, if it's built on this system, it can be built on this system. And, the funding should be coming from a multitude of different people and players and places. So hopefully trying to come up with some governance solutions that can be adapted. We'd like to be a part of that universe and hopefully create the legal frameworks, which I think are super important. Like as a developer and business owner myself, like, in the United States, a lot of people, when you come up and you create an organization, you don't know what you're doing. Like when you're creating your first LLC or you're creating your first C Corp, there's so much legal framework that needs to be, that when you just want to build, you might have a product that's great. I want to see the engineer type organizations that are 10 decentralized engineers that just want to work together and enter into contracts with real world companies. But that's a specific model that should be easy. And we need to create better, models and frameworks for that. And whether or not you want to adapt that onto, Ethereum, or you want to adapt that onto, any other protocol, so be it. Like however you guys want to solve it. We just want to make sure that there's better models for you to follow, and then you pick different parts of whether it be identity or maybe stable asset, or you have different governance models that you'll pick and choose to deploy. And then how you relate and how you interact with other DAOs might be dependent on the types of the choices that you made. Some organizations will be completely anonymous and autonomous, and some organizations will be fully KYC'd, and some might choose to not deal with the other type.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to this idea of opening up the silos of information, right, and letting the grain flow to all the people. And I think that's great. I love it. There's another organization, not to hijack your question section, but there's another organization called LexDAO, Legal Engineers, and who I think is a great resource. We've actually been looking to more partner with team members from LexDAO to create legal wrappers for DAOs, whether it's Aragon DAOs, Moloch DAOs, Colony DAOs. And I think one thing, I mean, I've known Bern for like a year, maybe 2 years now. So I'll definitely just ping him on this. But I think like this idea of creating these easy to deploy legal contracts and like doing the heavy lifting in the beginning, which is something that we've been exploring and we were like very interested in getting involved with, is such a valuable asset. It's like someone goes ahead, they forge the path, and then it's easy for everyone else to deploy it. Just fork.
Well, thank you, Yeller, and excited to to get to know you better. We've got a question from Drawbridge Lending. I know, Wolf, you were about to chip in on something there.
No, just adding on Yellow's point. I mean, what you're talking about, the heavy lifting, we're doing this right now with minimum viable protocol parameters. And that's, you can imagine, that's a major discussion, because we're trying to create exactly what you guys need. So all you have to do is tap into this, the minimum viable product requirements, and then you have the governance solutions that you may otherwise not have, that could otherwise, lead to problems in the future. That's really one of the core sort of mission-driven ideas in the DevDAO. Sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Thanks, Wolf.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, guys. Wolf, thanks for inviting us. My name is Matt Lyle. I'm General Counsel with Drawbridge Lending. But I also, I've been working with Wolf recently on an initiative to develop an SRO, a cryptocurrency marketplace SRO. I have a fairly deep background with SROs as a lawyer, and also I worked at an organization that had its own industry arbitration system. So, this has a lot of interesting applications, both from my experience and also from what we're currently doing. Our business is heavily regulated, and financial industry in the United States is probably one of the most heavily regulated industries that doesn't deal with toxic products. And as a result, they have to hire me at a high rate to try and navigate through the shoals of the patchwork of regulation, both in the United States and globally. It's a nightmare. And so this kind of stuff is really interesting. And to me, from a philosophical standpoint, I see it as two different issues. Number one is that there's generally an information asymmetry between me and another counterparty. So either I have more information than they do, or vice versa. I either have more information, but there's a regulator that sees or thinks that there's something going on, but they don't really understand. So those kinds of asymmetries can probably be better balanced with something like this. And then the second thing, which is probably even more important, at least from a governance side, is an incentive asymmetry. So, from my background, I spent some time in Washington. And in Washington, in political circles, what happens is that the driving force there is constituencies. It's human voters. And yet so much that goes on in Congress is being driven by deep pockets and lots of money. And so there's this constant effort by congressmen to try and balance those two forces. And it's, again, there's an asymmetry there. And this is something that can address that. So to get to my point or my question, I was wondering, how much have you so far engaged with the US government? And have you had some success there? Can we help you with that? I have a long background, at least from financial regulation, to help you try and make some introductions. So I'm just wondering, what has your experience been with that so far?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that, Matt. Just so happens, I got my Series 7 when I was 18 years old. Since then, I've run, now I have a registered broker-dealer. I have run a CPO, a commodities pool operator. I'm on my way to finalizing my principal exam for the 24, just more recently to update that. I'm going through the process of getting a alternative trading system license for my broker-dealer. So I deal with a bevy of interesting people in that world, and I love it. And I think that this is a real big part of solutions that we need to get together as a country. I'm an American. I'm living in Germany right now, and so there's a lot of different things that go on here.
Straight from where I used to live.
Yeah, but we as an industry need to get together, and I do things usually on my own island, and with my own team, and connecting with Wolf and understanding the needs. I used to live in Chicago. I have a lot of friends in that trading industry there. I worked for FINAT and Callion Financial as they became New Edge. So I did a lot of the security design for the infrastructure for the system that is now New Edge. And I know enough to know that I only know the tip of the iceberg, and that we need to come together and we need to be able to present and represent these things as a group and with clear eyes. Because it's two different sides of things. One, we're trying to talk to them about these things that are currencies and that are commodities and that are securities, and they represent so much. They all get bundled into this idea that it's that they can all be the same thing. They're radically different. These ledgers and the way that we're able to hold information should be represented by so many, can represent so many different things. And creating governance and creating, the ability to have people vote on a system, and then, like you said, have this kind of value that's derived from the participation, which is so important in organizations like self-regulated organizations. And it's so important for us to get together. So, the movement that Wolf has explained to me and that he's been a part of with you moving forward in that is something that I'm super excited to try to work with and try to hopefully build tools that can help present the organizational opportunity that these things have. In my mind, decentralized autonomous organizations are the end goal. Digital asset organizations are the step in between, and we have a lot of different types of legal bridges and understandings for potentially running equity and commodities and running all of the different types of digital assets on it in between. So I'd love to be working with you guys and understanding your needs, and I'll let Wolf further up on that.
To Timothy. So Matt, just by way of background, this DevDAO was very, very strongly initially focused on technology solutions, but we realized in the last few months, we realized there's no way around SRO participation, because otherwise there's no way forward in the strongest capital markets in the world, right? So I think there's a very strong recognition that SRO involvement for the DevDAO is inevitable. So I think we have something to talk about. You're muted right now.
Yeah, terrific. And thank you guys. I have to jump. I have a 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Wolf, thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for joining.
Jason, do you have anything to add?
No, I think it's been outstandingly informative. And please keep us posted as this thing develops. And I too have a 12, so I will hop, but great stuff. Appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Right. Yeah, thank you both. That really does wrap it up for us here. If there aren't any further questions or any comments, I appreciate everyone attending. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop down my personal Telegram in the chat here. It's at Trust Layer, TRUSTLAYER, and that is on Telegram. And I'm fairly accessible. We're still wrapping up and trying to understand the membership process. We're going to be looking for a lot of different types of personas to assist in what we're doing. But if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to us there. We're developing some publicly facing web interfaces for people to communicate with us. Those just haven't been created yet. We expect them soon. But thank you everyone for attending. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me. Or we also have a Telegram at Developers DAO is the other Telegram that we have. So feel free to join that conversation as well. Everyone's just talking there. So thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Timothy.
Thank you.